Alright folks, ditch those hiking boots and get ready to discover the treasures of Lancaster. Forget mountains, today's Highland hiking adventure is all about castles, cathedrals and maybe even a few wonky towers. First stop on our whistle-stop tour of this historic town, the mighty Lancaster Castle. Now this old pile isn't your typical fairy tale castle. Forget princesses locked in towers. This one is a bit more, well, gritty. You see, Lancaster Castle has been looming over this town for almost 1,000 years. That's a whole lot of history. We're talking Romans who built forts right here on this very spot way back in 79 AD. They knew a good spot to keep an eye out for troublemakers when they saw one. Fast forward a few centuries and Lancaster Castle becomes a bit of a posh residence for the Duke of Lancaster, John O'Gaunt. And history buffs out there, ring a bell? Yep, John O'Gaunt. But Lancaster Castle wasn't all about fancy dinner parties. It also housed a rather important court. In fact, some of England's most notorious trials were held right here within these walls. We're talking the Pendle witches in 1612, folks. Bet they wish they'd stuck to a bit of a good, honest herbalism. Even the roof itself is rumoured to be haunted by the restless spirits. But hey, that's a story for a bit further down the road. For now, let's just say Lancaster Castle may look grand, but it's seen its fair share of darkness too.
Lancaster, oh Lancaster, let your story unfold.
Right then, ditching the shivery castle tales, let's wander over to a place steeped in a different kind of history, Lancaster Priory. It stands right next to the castle, a beacon of peace after those spooky stories. Now if you thought 1,000 years of history was impressive, hold on to your hiking boots. Lancaster Priory has the castle beat, going all the way back to the 11th century. Originally founded as a Benedictine monastery, Lancaster Priory has seen Saxons, Normans, the whole historical works. It even became the town's parish church in 1430. Talk about a career change. But this isn't some dusty old building. No, Lancaster Priory is still a thriving church with a whole community around it. You can almost hear the whispers of centuries past, mingling with the hymns on a Sunday morning. And if you're lucky, you might even catch some stunning carol music echoing through the arches. Now that's what I call a history lesson you can feel.
Dalton Square, the town hall looms facing Queen.
Alright history buffs, ready to delve into the Roman days? Just a short walk away, tucked behind the priory, we stumbled upon Lancaster Roman bathhouse. Imagine gladiators kicking back after some arena action, centurions soaking those tired feet. It's a little slice of Rome, right here in Lancaster. From Roman baths to roaring seas, let's make our way to Lancaster Maritime Museum, perched right along the picturesque St George's Quay. Now, don't let the name fool you. This isn't just about dusty ship models. Lancaster's got a surprisingly swashbuckling past. Get this, 18th century Lancaster was a major port, buzzing with trade from the West Indies, sugar, rum, mahogany. Goods from across the globe flowed through this town. But there's a dark side to this golden age. Lancaster was also deeply involved in the transatlantic slave trade. The museum doesn't shy away from this history, and that's what makes it a fascinating and deeply important stop on our journey. Time to change gears and get a little grand. Let's stroll over to Dalton Square, where two icons of Lancaster stand tall. First up, the Queen Victoria Memorial. Imagine Her Majesty, Queen Victoria, sculpted in gleaming bronze, practically surveying her kingdom. This monument was built back in 1906, a testament to the Victorian era's might and industry. And facing this formidable queen, we've got the magnificent Lancaster Town Hall. It's all arches and columns and a bit of a classical palace dropped into this quaint northern town. Can't you just picture politicians bustling about inside? debating the affairs of the day with a suitable gravitas. Now, just across the road from the posh town hall, we have a place for a bit of soul searching: Lancaster Cathedral. Alright, I admit it. Cathedral sounds a tad grand for a town like Lancaster. But hey, don't knock it till you see it. This particular cathedral isn't some gloomy Gothic masterpiece. Think bright and airy, all spires reaching for the heavens. It was only built in the 1850s, which in cathedral years is practically yesterday. See, Lancaster wasn't always a Catholic stronghold. Back then, the Church of England ruled the roost, but a few determined Catholic folk decided they needed a grand place for their own services. So they splashed the cash, built this beauty, and stuck two fingers up to the establishment. Metaphorically speaking, of course. They even have a legend that the architect, E.G. Paley, accidentally designed the tower to lean slightly. Now, whether that's true or just a bit of local yarn, I'll leave that up to you. But whatever the whispers about its origins, Lancaster Cathedral is a grand and welcoming place. Daily services, stunning stained glass windows, it's a place to reflect, find some inner peace, or simply marvel at the fact that someone once accidentally built a wonky tower. And who knows, maybe you'll even spot a ghost of a disgruntled architect haunting the place. Right folks, time to lace up those walking boots and soak up a bit of canal side charm. Lancaster is lucky to have a lovely stretch of the Lancaster Canal winding through its midst. And get this, it's almost dead straight. Those old engineers weren't ones for messing about with wiggly routes. Perfect for a peaceful stroll, watching the narrow boats glide past, or perhaps getting hilariously competitive at a spot of duck feeding. Just try not to fall in, especially after that hearty pub lunch we just had. Now ready for our grand finale? We ditch the canals and head uphill to Williamson Park. Get those quads ready because it's a proper leg burner. But you'll be rewarded with views fit for, well, maybe not royalty, but definitely someone important with a fancy title. Williamson Park is all rolling hills, winding paths, and sneaky glimpse of the Lake District peaks on a clear day. They say you can even see the sea, though after a few pints the night before, I'm not sure I'd trust my own eyesight that far. But the park's crowning glory, the jewel in its rambling crown, is the Ashton Memorial. This thing is bonkers. Picture a giant wedding cake plonked right on top of the hill. It was built by a local millionaire mogul, Lord Ashton, in memory of his late wife. Bit extravagant, maybe, but hey, who are we to judge how folk deal with grief? Some buy a sports car, some build giant follies. Inside, it's like a miniature cathedral, all marble and light. Quite the surprise after the somewhat gaudy exterior.
Untold, parks and alleys where stories are told. Lancaster, oh Lancaster, with tales so bold. Knights and witches and treasures untold. Parks and alleys where stories are told. Lancaster, oh Lancaster, with tales so bold. Knights and witches and treasures untold. Parks and alleys where stories are told. Lancaster, oh Lancaster.
And that's a wrap on Lancaster, folks. Might not have been the mountains, but Lancaster's history sure packed a punch. Remember, the most fascinating stories come from the most unexpected places.
Knights and witches and treasures untold. Parks and alleys where stories are told. Lancaster, oh Lancaster, with tales so bold. Knights and witches and treasures untold. Parks and alleys where stories are told. Lancaster, oh Lancaster, with tales so bold. Knights and witches and treasures untold. Parks and alleys where stories are told. Lancaster, oh Lancaster, with tales estate. Oh Lancaster, in your streets we roam, finding tales, finding ghosts, finding home. Our Lancaster, our journey's end. Let your stories like your river bend and blend.